We are starting soon.
What is up, Album Book Club? Welcome back to another album review. Today we're taking a look at Coup de Grâce by SeeYouSpaceCowboy, suggested to us in a video that is not out yet. Sorry.
Oops.
So some bad timing on our part. Is this spinning? It is. All right. We ready to get into our top three?
Think so?
Yeah.
Everybody's here today.
Oh, yeah, I'm back. Let's go!
All right. Starting off, my top three were Silhouettes in Motion, Respite for a Tragic Tale.
Got it?
No, I don't. And Curtain Call.
I had And the Two Slips in the Shadows, Sister with a Gun, and Red Wine and Discontent.
I had Respite for a Tragic Tale, Lubricant Like Kerosene, and Chewing the Scenery.
I had To the Dance Floor for Shelter, Silhouettes in Motion, and Chewing the Scenery.
There's a little bit of overlap.
Yeah, I
like
think
this
I
could
missed
be
the mark. Did I have any that was the same as you guys?
I don't think so. You have one that's the same as what we're about to say. Getting into our bottom song, mine was Sister with a Gun.
Mine was Lubricant Like Kerosene.
I knew that was coming.
Mine was To the Dance Floor for Shelter.
Mine was Respite for a Tragic Tale.
We're starting fights today, huh?
Yep.
I don't know if we're starting fights as much, explaining an album that's kind of all over the place.
Yeah, you really do kind of pick certain things you like, and then it carries through certain songs.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of that discussion, I think we're going to start off with one of those. The first track, we have Allow Us to Set the Scene. Carl, hang on for a second.
Yeah, we'll be all right.
I gave this an 8 out of 10.
6.
7.
I give it a 5.
I saw that coming.
5, 6, 7.
8.
8. Jesus.
That was planned. I want everyone to know that we planned that out.
Nothing is ever planned.
If you think we have enough faith in each other to actually plan things out, this is the only thing that we are capable of doing.
They're lying to you. This is in the script.
I forgot about the script.
Logan, stop being a psyop.
That's what we wanted. We got the full spread. We got jelly, we got jam, we got butter, we got all the spreads. Nutella. What else do people eat on toast these days? Leave it in the comments.
I was just trying to think about what I put on my toast. Honey.
Honey, there's a good one.
Marmalade.
Ooh.
Apple butter.
Apple butter. Cinnamon butter?
We're
Not me.
gonna run out of things for them to comment.
If you put a little bit of regular butter down, then brown sugar over top of that.
Real. All right. Let's start about this track.
Do I think that this song gives you a good sense of what you're getting into? Not really at all. I mean, towards the end, yeah. But for the first couple of times I listened to this, I thought that was a different song. I thought there was 2 intros to this album, and the second one was going to get destroyed. And today, right before this, I found out that was the same song. So it got a much better score than it would have.
For me, on the whole, introducing you to their sound thing, I kind of like how stark of a difference it is. Only because throughout the rest of the album, we do get really stark differences in sounds that they kind of just mash together. There's definitely different lines that feel like they're almost parts of different songs going on. So it's kind of neat that they start out with 2 very distinct things and just kind of mash them. I want to point out my first note of the album because it says, I really like how this one starts. And I'd be really happy if this was the entire song. Like if this was the entire album, I'm gonna be a happy dude. And then it hit me in the middle. I was like in the middle of writing that. I was like, you know what? I like this sound a lot. I like how they're doing it. And then that breakdown hit right in the middle of the song, and everything swaps. I thought it was really cool. I liked the drive behind the heavier sections. I have some problems with the vocals, but I think the drive and energy is there. I think a lot of the personality kind of comes through. Also, I think the spoken word part of the song is weird. Like, there's a weird little spoken word part at the very end. It's just kind of meh for me.
I don't even remember that happening.
Yeah, it's like the last, like, maybe 20 seconds. Like, they rattle off a couple sentences.
Carson took all my notes, other than that I hated it. I mean, it just... The intro was like... I don't know. Like, don't... Just don't. Like, whatever weird land that stays in, it's like Phantom of the Opera meets bad elevator music with some other weirdness thrown in. It's just not for me. So
I don't think I've heard music on an elevator maybe ever in my life.
It's usually the girl from Ipanema, but...
Well, yeah, but I can't remember the last time I actually heard music in an elevator.
Yeah, usually they are like conveniently awkwardly silent for the stranger to hop in with you and then feel weird.
I don't think they really do that anymore. Like all the modern elevators that I've either seen put in or like worked around, we've never put a speaker in one.
A lost art. Let's bring it back.
Somebody needs to bring the JBL into the elevator and just hide inside the light.
The other thing that I didn't... Sorry to interrupt your elevator talk there. I got jump scared in the center, and I really didn't like it. Like that's like the most I have physically jolted from listening to an album in a long time. And there was just a lot of reverb on the first half, and it just went away as soon as the second half started, and that was kind of interesting. Interesting choice.
They do something similar later on with compression. Like two very distinct parts of the song. One is like slower but super compressed, but when the metal track comes in, it all opens up. We'll talk about it more when we get there, but I thought, they do that kind of often here.
Yeah. My job for the next 12 tracks is to talk about how much I hate your screaming and how rough the technique is. It's very, very, very raw and not mixed well in like any way, especially for the sound of everything else on the album. It's very like let loose kind of, and then it gets way too loud, especially in this song. Like, you talk about front and center screaming, and it's just very thin. There's nothing behind it. They didn't like multi-layer it. I'm sure they did multi-layer it, but it doesn't feel like they did it right. So
I remember there's a point later on where they layer it with the normal vocals, and it ain't it.
There's so many weird effects on all the different parts of the tracks that I couldn't tell you what was what based on anything, because it's just generally there's just too much of everything all at the same time. That applies to the whole album. But
I feel like that's part of the style, kind of. I feel like that's kind of what they were going for, especially with the first track, kind of trying to lull you in with a sense of normalcy and then hitting you with like just the most insane thing right in the middle. Like it startled me even.
Yeah, I usually don't get jump scared. I mean, I spend most of my time watching Ghost Adventures, so I mean, I'm usually a tank when it comes to this stuff.
The gauge of scary Ghost Adventures. Zach Baggins did come and help us in Columbus one time.
Carlos prepared for anything except this album.
Yep, apparently just not this today.
All right, we ready to move on?
Yeah,
I reckon.
All right, next up, Subtle Whispers to Take Your Breath Away. I gave this one a 7 out of 10.
Give this a 6.75.
I gave this one a 6.5.
I gave this one a 7.
My God.
Nice tight grouping there.
That's a real tight range.
That we might have got through Police Academy with that grouping. That was pretty okay.
All right, you know what else was pretty cool, or pretty okay? The transition. Did anybody pick up on that with the last track? The transition.
It was
to this
clean.
one?
Yeah, I missed it for like 30 seconds.
Super clean.
There's a lot of those throughout this album, and none of them are like seem 100% intentional.
I would say like the front half of this album, the first 6, they seem super intentional, but it stops at track 9 for some reason. Like you never see it again after track 9, and once you get to track 7, they start getting like lesser, like they start like thrashing you about in the intros.
Yeah, the one between 6 and 7 made me really angry, but we'll get to that later.
Oh. I didn't have any issues with that one, actually.
I thought it was. I liked that one a lot.
Yeah, that's the one that seems unintentional, but like it has to be.
I thought that was super intentional.
If anyone, I'll just go ahead and say it. If anyone puts applause on an album that's not a live album, that prevalent in the mix, you're done. You will not get a score higher than a 5.
I thought the only reason it was there was for the transition. Because I start shitting on it while it's there. I'm like, oh, fucking putting applause on a non-live album, super corny. Like, why would you do this? And then my note right after that is, oh my god, it's so cool.
So there is a lot of applause on a lot of albums that's kind of buried in it, but it's not like the whole weight of the end of a song. Sorry, we're getting way ahead of ourselves.
So that's 2, Carson. You're ruining family night.
No. on track 2, which is where we were, I liked the guitar tone. That was the only positive note I had, so I'm going to stop there.
It's got a fun Midwest emo riff, and then it slides into that metal riff pretty solid. The tone of the guitar, love it. The chorus itself was solid, I thought. The screaming sounded fine. Mixed poorly. It was way too loud. And then there was just way too much going on in the regular vocal effect. There's way too much.
You said it. Solid. That's like most of my notes. This one's fine. This is a pretty decent song.
Yep, I don't have many notes either. I thought the mix was kind of muddied up by the screaming in it, and this is the point in the album where I realized that you really had to listen to this loud. Like, if you're listening to this like at half volume, there's no way you're gonna pick up on everything, and the mix is so muddy that things just start to get covered up. So you have to crank it, and when you have to do that, it kind of sucks.
So neat fact, I tried to fix it with EQ in Apple Music, and I could not fix it. So whatever mud is a very interesting kind of mud.
I think it's the muddiest mud to ever mud.
Well, it's like, so like there's two...
We love eating it around here.
There's too much low mids and not enough high mids. So it's like, it's got both problems. It's like too much and too little. So you can't, I don't know, at least without pulling real software out and using real tools, I couldn't just fix it in the EQ, but...
I mean, for me, I honestly thought it was like a stylistic thing. Like, looking into the band a little bit, it's clear that they're very inspired by like metalcore, emo, stuff like that. So it's not those genres are not strangers to like super muddy mixes, but I feel like the way they've done it here isn't the way to do it properly. Like, you've made it too muddy. You've muddied the water too much. You've made it completely opaque.
Right, and I know that, like, because of my background, I like crispy, clean, really precise, just gorgeous mixes. But, like, this goes back to, it has almost the same problems Menno's had. And it's kind of an interesting comparison, because overall, I don't think the albums are all that similar. It's just that, for whatever reason, they both had the same mixing faux pas for me.
I also think the big problem here is there's a story going on, and I can't hear it. like there's so much going on that it almost feels like it's hard to pay attention to what's important, and you just kind of get lost in the minutia of it all. Like, don't get me wrong, I love the drums on this album, but man, do you hear them banging away. They're loud, driving, and in your face. I love it, but it's hard to focus on the lyrics, and then you have so many vocal effects going on, you can't hear them. The screaming, I'm pretty sure half of the time is just noise.
Dude, so I like, the drummer is good, but these are some of the most flaccid drum tones I have heard in a long time.
Oh, they're very, like, it feels like he's playing through like a stack of towels.
Right, I mean, it's that, like, I always say it sounds like slapping a wet baby seal. Like, you're just like smacking something and you get the thud and then there's nothing underneath it. Like, Like real drums have curves.
Would smacking you like give me the same effect?
No, it rings. I'm a very resonant, chunky boy.
I feel like we are roughly the equivalent of two baby seals over here.
It's gonna be a really easy Monday, Wednesday reel.
Together, Connor and I are one ham hock.
We're four.
Do we have anything else for this song?
I actually saw a really good meme that applies to this the other day. It was how the United States will literally use whatever random things to measure stuff instead of using the metric system. And I've never thought something would apply so immediately after seeing it in a meme in my life. But measuring your weight in ham hocks might be the most U.S. thing that I have heard in a long time. Other than talking with your hands like this.
Come on, it's valid. It's a valid comparison. I can feed one tiny family for a couple days.
That's all I had. That was it.
I like that.
We're probably
That's
good. I don't think we talked about the song hardly at all. So we
Yeah,
can
because
move on.
the song was like kind of mid, not gonna lie.
Yeah, I decided not to use any thumbs up for this one because I would have used them on half the tracks. So
I had to change my thumbs up. I went back and added notes to a song to change my thumbs up.
wow.
How bad it got.
All right. And the two slipped into the shadows. I gave a 7.5 out of 10.
I gave it an 8.
I gave it a 7.
I give this one a 6.
You know what's funny? For how much we are dogging this album, we have some pretty good scores.
Don't get me wrong. I think a lot of this was... I realized that personally I didn't like it. But it wasn't a bad song. It was just stuff that I was like, this isn't my taste. Why'd you do this here? I don't like that. But I was like, it's not a bad song.
I think that applies to almost everybody in the room here because, especially on this song, I feel like their sound in this song is very disjointed. Like the drums at points are like very distinctly metalcore, and the vocals are distinctly emo. It's like two different genres going on at the exact same time, and I'm sure some people are into that. Genres don't mix well for me. I like my metalcore to sound like metalcore. I like my emo to sound like emo. That's all it is.
Do you know that if you put soap in between oil and water will mix? They just don't. They didn't know what their soap was. That was where I'm going with this.
Oh yeah.
It's very discombobulated. I agree with you.
I didn't think he actually was going to relate that to the song. I thought he was just going to say something about soap.
Oh, you know what? I actually do have a note about the soap. I said the support gets lost in how muddy this mix is. Like the support for these disjointed sounds, like the little bits that you need in between them to kind of transition the genres, they get really lost just because of how muddy the mix is.
Well, I used Dr. Squatch. Anyway, no, the mix I thought was actually a lot better on this song, and the screaming was a lot more contained. Some kind of parameters got put on it, and it was very nice to hear. The guitars also took the drive over from the drums, which I think was kind of a big issue. But then they have like a weird, like kind of off scale, out of key section just in the background, and I thought that was pretty fun. Except for halfway through the breakdown, they made a puke noise like Disturbed, and it was just the worst thing ever.
Other than that, the breakdown was pretty good.
Yeah, the breakdown was
got
great.
It got a spot in my notes, along with the guitars and the mix being better on this song and this song part 2 that we're about to get to. But yeah, this one also had this is the biggest one where it had the transition where I wasn't sure if it was intentional or not.
I think with how similar the songs are, it does definitely feel like part 2. Like, I thought they were the same song for a second.
Oh, I mean like from the last song to this one.
Oh, yeah, it was really clean.
Yeah.
Mhm. I was like, that might be on purpose. That might have just happened. It probably was on purpose. But
I'm on the side of I think the first like 5 transitions are on purpose.
I feel like they all probably were on purpose, but some of them sound close enough that they could have not been on purpose, and I would have believed you.
I think I'm learning that I just didn't like the intro so much that I shat on the rest of the album. I think that's what I'm learning right now.
It happens.
It's fine.
Hey, sometimes you get off to a really bad start and it's hard to recover from that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. My scores tell that story pretty well.
All right, we ready to get into the next one?
Yeah.
We got Red Wine and Discontent, and The Two Slipped in the Shadows Part 2. I give this one a 7 out of 10.
Give it a 7.5.
I also gave it a 7.5.
I give this one a 6 again.
I mean, it's the same song.
Yeah.
So
At least
Yeah,
I'm consistent.
To me, not only instrumentally is this way too similar to the last song, I'm pretty sure most of the lyrics are the same. Like, I'm pretty sure they were the same song almost.
it feels extremely similar. The differences that I noted, I feel like I picked up on the mix things of the last track here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, specifically, the screaming is a lot more consistent in this one. It's not all over the place. It's a lot more discernible. They sound like actual words sometimes in this track. The chorus is fun. The vocals are just better in this track. Yeah, I just think there's a lot less mud in the mix as well. So,
You know
yeah.
what's not better in this track than the last one?
Hmm.
The breakdown. That's
That's
where
true.
my minus 0.5 came from. They're the same song.
Yeah, I'm not reading any of my notes. They're mean.
All right. I do think the guitars were different. They were more Midwest emo on this one than the last one.
Carl,
Sorry, they're terrible.
he's actually being mean.
Yeah.
And then it was either the pre-chorus or the first chorus on this one had a weird like flow issue where it was like it staggered up and just messed up a tiny bit, but it was fine. And then about halfway through this song, I realized that the person screaming really is like doing a Fred Durst impression and then screaming. And oh man, it did not sit well with me that I realized that for the rest of the album, because it's like that every time.
Carson, because I know Carl isn't going to say anything. Do you have anything else?
No, I'm good.
Carl, what did you say?
I liked the guitar intro riff on this one.
That's actually mean. Don't say that.
I'm not going to read it.
I'll look
no.
at your notebook after this.
Yeah, it's fine.
Subscribe on Patreon and we'll drop the Carl notes. I'm kidding, we
We
don't
could.
have that.
They're
Yeah.
crazy, dude.
They're usually really mean.
Oh
I
my
usually
god,
filter them.
you filter a lot.
Yeah, I do. It's fun.
All right, we ready to get into one that I know Logan's excited to talk about?
I'm excited to talk about this one too. I have a lot of notes.
We have Lubricant and Kerosene. Gave it an 8 out of 10.
I gave the song a 2.
I gave it an 8 out of 10.
I give this one a 4.
Go ahead.
Let me start this by saying I like Kim Dracula. But my problem with this song started the second it did, by playing the opening riff of Animal I Have Become and not changing it. It just doesn't have it as an octave down as the starting thing. It just plays it all on like the one area. And then the entire rest of the song is built off of this melody that is stolen. And therefore, I don't like it. The reason you got 2 points is because it was a banger. But I don't like the fact that it is entirely predicated, probably not on purpose, and I can guarantee you it was an accident, and no one... Carl shaking his head. If it wasn't an accident, shame on you. If it was an accident, shame on you. Look again. There's probably a song that sounds like it.
You don't... There's no way.
That's true.
an
That is a
accident.
huge song.
Because, it's... I didn't check and see if it was in the same key. I didn't play the other
not.
song
It's
because...
not in the same key.
Okay, because, like, I was... The instant it came on, I was like, oh. Like,
I'm pretty sure that's what happens when you play that riff in E standard instead of C sharp.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Logan basically said all my notes. The other ones I have are actually meaner than that, so I'm just going to...
So, here's my thing about the riff. I love that song. It's so ingrained deep in my soul. I get that they stole it. I don't care. This one was good. It reminded me a whole lot, because they were playing it in a different key. It actually reminded me of something else. Connor, you know them, Bear Ghost. It specifically reminded me of
yeah.
Necromancer and Dancing and both Starkiller, because those riffs are very similar, and they're super similar to this track too. So they probably
One of
pull a
those
lot
might actually be in
inspiration.
the same key.
Necromancer and Dancing is. I'm pretty
That
sure.
might be close.
I actually have an interesting thought. Sorry to interrupt you. So I wonder why we don't mind when it's a sample, but when it's not a sample and it sounds the same, we get so angry.
When it's a sample, it feels a lot more like you're giving credit to who made it.
Because if you're upfront with me where you got it, I won't be mad. If you drop me a single, or you write in parentheses, or some sort of writing credit for 3 Days Grace, something, if you would have keyed me in that you know what you did it on purpose, and you had permission to do it, then I'm fine with it. But I'm looking at this as you probably stole this riff, because I'm not going to look any further into this. They're not credited on the track, and I didn't see them credited at the bottom on Apple Music when I went and checked.
It's not. No, I just thought it was a funny thought because, like, you know, and when I hear a hip hop thing that uses my, well, I sound like a 90-year-old man. If I hear a pop track that uses a sample of one of my favorite rock songs, I'm like, oh heck yeah, so cool of them to redo that. But I was thinking about when "Stay With Me" by Sam Smith came out, and I immediately was like, this is a Tom Petty song. I literally cannot believe they let him release this. Like, the record company knew, they all knew. Like, you have to be kidding me. So, like, there's a different level of anger, and I was just curious what your guys' thoughts were.
I feel like part of it is, like, it almost feels like they're trying to be, like, semi-deceitful. And this isn't me talking about this band. I'm talking about this in general, this practice in general of stealing something and then, like, trying to pass it off as your own. It feels very deceitful, and I feel like it just puts a much fouler taste in your mouth when it's done that way, instead of them being upfront and honest. Like, hey, I didn't make this part, but I'm building off of it and doing something cool.
It's also, think of how many samples are usually niche hits.
Yeah.
Like, you see a lot more B-side sampling than you do see, like, the top 50 hits of the last 30 years. Versus, like, a lot of pop artists will take what were huge songs and then turn them into another huge song. Like, Dua Lipa, I think, is real famous for that. She just did that In Excess song, Need You Tonight. That was massive. And then she did it again.
Doechii with Anxiety. Fucking... I need to get back into book club mode, man.
Family night is ruined.
No, that was, again, just a neat thought. I was wondering, because that's one of those things that's like, it almost gets into, well, what's right and what's not right. I mean, what'd you call that? Semantics is the wrong word.
Morality?
Yeah, morality and music. Ethics, there you go.
Yeah.
Like, ethically, where does what make us angry? Because honestly, like, the Animal I Have Become riff is like, I mean, it's up there with like Seven Nation Army.
I would say it's iconic.
Yeah, like I don't know how, you know, it'd be different if you like borrowed a chord progression and some of the melody and like you just happened to do it in the same tempo, because that's how Stay With Me was, that Sam Smith song. I was, you know, mentioned Sam Smith song. It just happened to be that similar, and I guess I get it. But this is more like Ice Ice Baby, where it's like, no, that's it.
It's like, well, I added this little riff at the end where it goes.
All right.
That's what makes it sound like Bear Ghost, by the way.
That's what makes it a noodling riff. That's all I do when I
It
noodle.
is not as close as Ice Ice Baby.
No, because he added the little note in the end. Under Pressure goes da 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 da. Ice Ice Baby goes da 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 da. There's one extra note.
One note.
There's not an extra note in this.
Yeah,
one.
but it's in a different key, and there's less notes in this one than Animal I Have Become. Not by much, and I'm not
It's
defending
the
it
same
that bad.
note. It's just not the octave. That's what I was saying earlier. On the end, so it's that da 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 da. It goes up. They just play the same note in the same octave. It literally is the same riff, except for the second time around they go da 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 or whatever, an upscale, which is what you do when you're noodling around trying to think of a fun transition.
So the only defense that I'm going to give to this song is that that's not the entire song. That's like, they play that like 2, maybe 3 times, and I understand the song is built off of that.
No, it's the setup for the melody. The vocal melody is that riff.
Is it? I couldn't
Yeah,
hear
the vocal
I
line
couldn't hear the
is
lyrics.
then that guitar part the whole time. So that's what made me mad, was you steal the riff, and then the entire song is that with the vocal line.
Which is funny because Animal I Become doesn't have that in the vocal line.
No, not even close.
It has a really cool vocal line in it. It actually came on Pandora on the way driving over here, and I just started laughing. I was like, I didn't go intentionally go listen to this song after
Yeah,
this.
I'm going to have to listen to it when I'm on the way home. It's in my head already. Oh, yeah, speaking of the vocals, this is the song that did the weird layering thing where they layered clean vocals on top of, like, the fry scream. I was not into it. I didn't think it sounded good when that was going on. And the inflection of the clean vocalist on the word kerosene may be the worst thing I've ever heard. I loathe it. I despise what was going on there.
It's too nice for this.
You know, this reminds me of this dilemma I had when I was at a restaurant. This is an interesting one. So like I was at the restaurant and I knew one of the 2 Diet Cokes was out of fountain syrup. So I got half of each because I couldn't remember which one was which. And the guy behind me was like, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Why did you pour from 2 different Diet Cokes?" And I was like, "Well, I know one of them's out." And he goes, "You just gave yourself a 100% chance of getting a bad Diet Coke. At least either way, you would have had a 50% chance of getting a good one." And I was like, wow. So that's kind of what they did, layering the vocals.
Yeah.
You have like the weird anecdotal stories today, man.
Sorry, it happens. This is what happens when I actually sleep. I remember parts of my past.
Crazy.
I'm here for it. I can't say that, never mind.
All right, we ready to move on?
Yeah.
Respite for a Tragic Tale. I gave this one an 8.5.
I just changed my score to a 5.
8.5.
I'm going to change my score up to a 3.
Okay. Allow me to defend myself here, because I know it's out of place and all that. But when this album started, I said that I wanted this for the entire album, and we got it back, and it's great. I just dug it the whole time. And then we talked about this earlier when the applause starts. I do think it's corny. And right before the applause, we actually do get like a brief pause in the music. And it happens like 3/4 of the way through. So I'm thinking, oh, it's going to be like the first song again. And Kim Dracula is going to come back and scream in my ears. No. It started this applause thing. It transitioned to the next song in a really like neat way. Yeah, I think that transition is what gives you the drive you need to get back into this their like heavier style.
So, you know, I have a lot of mean things to say, but instead I think I'm going to try to start a new album book club tradition and just give it a thumbs down.
Oh, it's valid.
He just didn't like it, guys.
Yeah.
I think that's been here the whole time. We just don't use it.
See, well,
It's
Yeah.
it's very seldom used.
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, I think this is the time. I think there's no point in me being mean today. I'm trying not to be.
I know I've definitely given a couple thumbs sideways.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like a Roman emperor if I do this, you know, when we're talking about it and just...
Carson said like most of what I was gonna say. I think it really comes down to, do you like the sound of this song? And me and Carson did.
See, guys, this is why I can't be here. I just steal everybody's nose. Sorry.
I'm not gonna lie, I crashed out.
Let's hear it. The whole thing.
So, man, if I can hear the spit in your mouth, and I know I can hear my own right now, it's driving me nuts. Retake it, damn it. I was so pissed. It just, mic technique, not it. And then also, the singing was fine, and this was supposed to be like a play in the story. It made sense. Then the next track, Silhouettes in Motion, like behind a curtain with the light. It all makes sense story-wise with this being a play, and then the clapping of the crowd. I just was so disconnected from the story but at this point, because I couldn't hear any of the vocals, that by the time I got mad that I could way too much hear them.
All right. Do we have anything else from the Forbidden Carl notes?
No.
Can I read your notes, Carl?
Yeah, it's fine. It's not pleasurable.
Pain or pleasure?
We're gonna wait for Carson's response, or should I move on? Or his reaction?
Carl was just being a little bit mean.
All right. Silhouettes in Motion. I gave the song an 8.75.
Gave it a 7.5.
I also gave it a 7.5.
Me as well. I gave it a 7.5. That's...
I think what puts this above for me is the Hail the Sun references throughout. They're like a lot of the tones are similar to a band that I really like.
I think that can be boiled down to most of this album. Like, you'll pick out certain sounds and things that you like, and you'll just like songs more. I think the transition, like I said, the transition gave me all the drive I needed to get back into the mood for this style of music. I think the guitar is really cool. Like, it has a really good, really cool tone here, but the little like blips of dissonance kind of pissed me off. And there was a random like blues lick or like jazz lick in there, and I was just confused when it happened.
Yeah, I can't place it, but I feel like the main riff is something. But I could not figure out what it was.
I think it's like a mishmash of just a couple parts of different riffs.
That's fair.
Because it's like every time I hear... this is 100% the half of the album where if you start paying attention, you can tell every single one of their influences because they just do it like one-to-one. This is a Hail to the Sun song. Like I said, I went and listened to like 4 after this. It's like, oh, yep, they got the same like flow and stuff.
I will say, there is one thing... Sorry, I keep doing that to you, Carl.
No, go ahead.
This is like the smallest thing I think I've ever pointed out on this show. But, what is it? Oh, yeah, the shaker during the transition part. What?
You didn't see what I did. Never mind. It's okay. I'll explain it later.
The like shaker part leading into the ending, I thought was cool, and I only really see that in like Spanish music and fusion.
Yeah, I don't know. This one got a 7.5 because as I was like trying not to actively pay attention to this because I was so mad from the last track, I was trying to be happy about this one. I was like bobbing my head because I really enjoyed the halftime sections and just kind of the overall vibe of this one. I didn't like the clapping start. I don't know. It just seemed cheesy to me. That was it. It definitely is genre soup. There's a lot of different stuff coming from everywhere, but it actually works for almost the rest of the album. So,
All right.
We got anything else? To the dance floor for shelter. I gave this one a 6.5.
Gave this one a 6.5.
Gave this one a 6.
I gave this one an 8.
Oh wow.
Wow.
For me, it's the opening. It feels like the first 2 minutes of the track have just been drowned in a tank of water. They're so compressed. When everything opens up, it sounds really nice. But I just had such a hard time getting into it with everything on the front end. Like once the drive kicked in, I was like, oh yeah, I'm here for this. But the way they've swapped between the parts in this song just doesn't do it for me as well.
Neat. I actually wrote that this was my favorite mixed on the album, so I guess I like compression. Well, I know this. I do like compression.
Oh yeah, and the rest of us are very notoriously no compression guys.
Compression,
not no compression, but
it's your friend when you're trying to make room in a mix. And there's a couple parts where it hits too hard on this album, and I have a note about the vocals later getting very crunchy. Well, also crushy, but crushed and crunchy. Yeah, I wrote the mix got better, but the screaming did not. That's still a problem. But the energy was great, and I liked the weird transition. I didn't at first, and then I let it play through, and I was like, oh, cool, I'm fine with this.
oh, I'll actually ask you this since you would probably know. It feels like the two sections in this song, like the softer section and the harder section, it feels like they were almost mixed by two different people.
They were completely mixed separately. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's something that's like a big problem on this album overall is there's no cohesive picture going on. You know, it's almost like if you think about in a movie, if you went from scene to scene and the color grading completely changed. And how like at first that probably wouldn't bother you until you got like part of the way through the movie.
It's like when Breaking Bad goes to Mexico and everything turns yellow. That way you know you're somewhere else.
That's not totally a problem.
But it really helps to have a little less going on and then hit something on the master that's going to hit the whole album and do all that together. It almost makes me wonder if this was like algorithm mastered or something. But anytime they do switch to the other parts, it always sounds completely different. Like the first half of the intro is completely different. Track 6 was completely different. That little itty bitty section here is a completely different mix. And considering I was already struggling to hear stuff on my headphones, that was kind of frustrating as the album went on.
You know what, actually, now that you say algorithm mix, it does kind of remind me, probably burning any bridge of getting sponsored by them later, but of the Lander AI mixer, because it does tend to compress a little more than it should, and that does make sense. But I think vocally I like this one a lot, despite my normal hatred of compression. I thought it was pretty good. I knew it wasn't going to be a slow song the whole time because they didn't have that feature come back. It was definitely going to be the fake out. But to me, this is placed weird for a fake out slow song. And, I mean, that's really, really it.
Yeah, this was just the song that prompted me to text Carl that this was the worst Limp Bizkit cover band I'd ever heard. So that was their inspiration for this one. And just the drums were driving the piss out of this song. I feel like they were, I know they weren't, but they felt like they were ahead of everybody else for like a good bunch of it.
That's if it was faster, that's on purpose. That's something that it helps the song move forward, but while feeling relaxed. Because there are a couple tracks on this album that are actually really fast, but they don't feel that way because the rest of the band just kind of relaxes and the drummer just has all the momentum. It's kind of interesting. Almost has like it's like a rubber band pulling kind of feel, but I don't know. There's a couple different ways to do it. That happens a lot in punk. You just don't notice because it's a lot sloppier most of the time. So, you're just like, oh, that guitar player's way behind the beat, and you don't think about that being the feel of the song.
Just think about it. That's just punk music to me. Just bad players playing music, man.
I think if you ever heard a band that was too good playing punk, it would feel like prog rock because that's what it is at that point.
Yeah.
Or prog metal. It just kind of becomes fast rock. Like that's part of it, the rawness. And I think it brought some rawness to it and helped it push forward on this one. That's probably why it was my top song, just because the drums were driving. Something I always like.
All right, are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Rhythm and Rapture. I give this one a 6.5.
Give this a 6.
I gave this one a 7.
I also give this one a 7.
Yeah. Thumbs up plus. Pretty good.
You know what's funny? Thumbs up.
This was the song I had to add notes to take my thumbs up away. Pick any pop punk song, any pop punk band. That's the basis for this song. The pre-chorus and chorus were fine, except for the fact that the screaming technique is still based off Fred Durst, and it's just like a whine up into it. You're revving up the scream instead of just hitting it. It's kind of like if you were to play a trumpet and have to blow up into every note. It's just not right.
Yeah, I have that. I have the exact note about the overall whininess of that. I did like that it was high energy. They keep the momentum up for a while here. But my big problem is that the mix was back to kind of that muddy. This sounded like the earlier parts of the album that were a little less defined, a little muddier, at least for me. So that's how it ended up a 7 instead of an 8, like the last track.
Pretty sure me and Connor both got hit with the yawn plague. Pretty sure we both yawned like 8 times in the past 10 minutes.
Which is funny given where we are in this album review. Next up, Sister with a Gun. Unless we have something else.
No.
All right. Didn't think so. I gave this one a 6 out of 10.
Give this one an 8.
Gave this one a 7.
I also gave this one a 7.
If I could have 2 thumbs up, this would be it.
Yep.
Good lord. I thought it was pretty solid. I like how they did the layered vocals here a lot more than they've done it like the rest of the album. I feel like they were done a little bit better here. And it had some really solid drums. That's all I really had.
This one got put in the Fushigi blender. And you're dead on. If I could give a second thumbs up, I would.
I found my Fushigi when I was unpacking. I'll bring it.
My God.
Yes.
I just have to remember to grab it. It was in a box full of like RCA cables. Neat fact. No, my note for this one is that the snare sounds so bad it ruins any chance of the intro being cool, and that the mix really needs clarity. But I didn't hate it. I mean, I was getting to a point that I was really tired of the mud, and I hate snare drums that go thwop, and this was it very much was that.
Yeah, pick any mid-2000s emo band. That's your mark for this guy. Other than that, it clicked in my brain that I had never once heard the bass guitar on this entire album. Although there was a groove to this one that just I enjoyed. I fell into the groove, Did not care for the screaming in any way, but the chorus was quite fun. Enjoyed.
So that reminds me of a quote from someone I was very shortly in a band with, who was a lead singer, and looked at the bass player and said, "Your job is to be felt, not heard." and yeah, that sums up.
I mean, you're not wrong. You don't say it.
I actually love really active bass playing. most
So
of the
do
time.
I am a really active bass player when I play.
Yeah, I would rather have lead bass and rhythm guitar than the other way around.
He likes Primus.
And Rush, and the Police, and there's more, but I'm struggling.
Am I listening to the wrong side of the Police? Everything I hear out of the Police is just like single note.
Yeah, but he's the one driving it.
He is driving, yeah.
No, Sting is not very good at bass.
I don't like Sting at all.
All right, we ready?
Yep.
Chewing the Scenery. I give this song a 7 out of 10.
I give it a 5.
Uh-oh.
Gave it a 7.5.
I give it a 7.25.
Yeah, I'll get this out of the way. I did write some notes before this thumbs up comes. It said, the intro is fine, and the only lyric I could understand is this is bliss. So I simply wrote, this is not bliss.
So before I don't get to talk about it, I really liked the stereo section where the two guitars were like wee wah between my ears. I liked that.
I didn't even catch that.
Yeah, it was cool.
Weird.
I actually have a note about you, Carl, in here.
Oh yeah.
I said like I felt like the intro here would get an objective boo from Carl, mainly because it just slowed down a lot in the intro. Slowed down from the last track. I'm like, oh, it's an objective Carl slow down boo. You know, I don't like it either. I think the guitar in this one's pretty cool. I agree with you on the stereo bit. It was actually used right, so I didn't mind it. And the chorus in this one is the most emo thing I've ever heard in my life. How are you going to sit there and say, stabbing my heart with the dullest of knives, screaming it at the top of your lungs and not... That's the most typical emo shit I've ever heard.
Yeah, dull knives can cut, and they probably hurt more. Neat fact.
That's like the point.
It's your Carl fact for today.
Yeah, I started writing the standard, this one's solid Fushigi Blender one, and then the breakdown hit and I stopped mid-type and was like, alright, hold on, this one's working. Yeah, the rest of mine is just a reference to a video that describes that feeling, and I don't care. The song is not worth the explanation.
Alright.
It was solid, but...
Well, I didn't tell you guys the best noobs. My Fushigi is the glow-in-the-dark model,
Hell yeah.
Let's go.
so it will not be going in a blender.
It's more important than anything on this album.
That's not entirely
That's a
true.
wild take.
I don't know. I think I care more about Carl.
Little
Okay,
plastic mirror
alright.
ball.
If you go back and see how many times we've brought up the ball, he might be right. He might be right, but for the opposite reason
We do
than you
talk
think.
an awful lot about the Fushigi ball.
He's right, not because the album is bad, but because we like that more.
It's more central to the lore
Yeah.
than anything.
I don't think it came with a DVD, and I know I don't have that anymore. That tells you how to do the magic trick. There is no magic trick. You literally just put the ball in your hand, and you're like, "Look, it's floating." That's the whole trick.
That video is definitely on YouTube.
Yeah, we'll find it.
Oh yeah.
We'll link it here.
We'll find the
It'll
VHS
be up in the
tape.
corner. It will not.
It wouldn't be VHS. They're not that old.
I know, it's tragic, but I bet someone burned it onto a VHS.
Well, tape melts, so they might have recorded it onto one.
All right, are we ready?
I was born ready.
All right. Last track, Curtain Call. I gave this one an 8 out of 10.
Give this a 6.5.
I also gave this a 6.5.
I gave it a 6.
Wow.
Listen, I hate when dudes whisper in my ear. We know it. It's how this track starts, and I hate it. The only thing I can say about it is that at least it was quiet. The first few minutes are just kind of boring for me. There's not too much going on, and once everything comes in, it sounds pretty alright. But I think it just takes way too long to get to the point for me.
There was a couple points where the chord progression got kind of goofy and kept going places that I didn't like. Not places that I didn't expect, because I like things that don't go where I expect. I like Radiohead, okay? They don't use conventional chords. Sorry, it's fine. What the other thing I didn't like was the vocals. This is the one the vocals got really crushed, and it's really weird because it's this kind of like sincere moment, and the vocals have this almost like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like someone almost set auto-tune right, and the bit crusher, it just pulled it the wrong way. So you got some of the digital artifacts at the end, and that on top of whatever compression was going on, like pulled it out. It didn't hide it. And it was just really interesting to me because it kind of took the sincere moment and made me think, oh, that's an Android.
I genuinely think that the auto-tune just got messed up at some points, because there's a few times where it like T-pained on him.
And if it's on purpose, cool. I mean, but I didn't see this as like a robot, like techno track or like a throwback to Cher or anything cool. So I don't know. I thought it probably was not on purpose, but I literally wrote, was that on purpose? At the end, so someone can correct me if they want.
Look, there was no drive for like a good half of this song, to which I was genuinely questioning if they were going to give us a proper ending, and they did not. And after that point, I just started crashing out, and I don't think I can read my notes anymore, but it's just a bunch of yelling.
Yeah, for me, this one felt like the slow intro almost felt like it was a reference to the slower tracks on here. I thought this was an attempt to do what we've seen a handful of times with like Mariana's Trench, Somewhere City, and even last week with the Wonder Years. Like they all try to do this, tie in all of the parts of each song into the end, and I don't think they did it nearly as well as those other three, but it was an attempt. It didn't get a 10 like those other three did, so...
Yeah, at some point we're going to end up with our last track manifesto, and we're going to have like a
rule sheet for the last
just
track.
the last track. Like it's almost like it can either, being the last impression you have of anything, it's either going to leave a good taste or a sour taste in your mouth. So it makes sense to put something that's good there, but not so good that it's the only good thing on the album. So you're waiting through the rest of the album just to get to the last track. So it's a make or break point. I mean, you can say the same thing about almost anything. You know, if you love a movie but it ends the way you don't like, you're not going to watch it again. It's the same thing.
All right. Well said. We ready to get into pacing?
Mm-hmm.
I gave this a 5.5 on pacing.
Yeah, I'm going to give it like a 6.
I gave it a 6.5.
I give it a 2.
Okay, for me, we have I'm being the antithesis of Carl real quick. I dug a lot of the transitions, even like the one that I thought was corny when it was applause. I thought that one was really cool. It was a pretty easy listen for me at the end of the day. I think the songs fit pretty well into each other, even though the only reason they fit well is because they're all disjointed in the same way, which is weird. I feel like that would be more of a negative thing, but it helps it kind of blend together when it doesn't really blend any other way.
I kind of agree with that because part of my problem is that everything is different, and I can like that. The problem is just that it needs to pick something it's going to do, because you either have everything different or you have everything that has nice transitions, or you tell a story. And this did parts of all of those things but succeeded in absolutely none of them. So it's like if I was a teacher, you made me grade a 20-page paper that was awful, whereas you could have given me a 5-page paper that was and I would have been happier. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a handful of songs that I think are definitely in the wrong place, and I managed to get burnt out by track 8 or 9, so I think that's hard to do on a 12-song album that is under 40 minutes. I think the pacing hurt it probably more than a lot of the other things.
Talk about the longest 39 minutes of your life right there. I mean, I genuinely looked down at track 6 and was like, oh my gosh, we got more. It's just there's so much going on that you're trying to listen for everything, and you cannot. You genuinely cannot hear everything in the mix. in one listen through of a song. I had to listen to half of these songs like 2 and 3 times, like just back to back, to get notes to pull about like specific chunks and sections, because there's so much going on. It just tires you out listening through everything. This is fine if I just want to be angry and sit in the corner and like mosh. That's fine. That's exactly what this is for. This is not a listening and analyzing album. This is a get angry and throw stuff type bag.
I mean, it seems like the screamer in the back really wants to break stuff.
Da-dum.
That's gonna be the outro to the noise area right there.
It's just such a funny thing, you know. Like I've never like looked at an album and been like, there were so many things you almost did, because this really was like this was like genre soup. We got parts of this, parts of that, parts of this, parts of that, but yet it failed at all of them by trying to be all of them at the same time and not committing to anything. And it's really interesting because Logan saw this thing that was like, he specifically was like, oh yeah, you know, but I think you were trying to say like there's too much detail for an album you should just be enjoying it.
Pretty much.
And I think it's a really interesting thing to be like, oh well, you have to re-listen to hear this, but I don't think that's the point of this. At least what I took out of it. So I don't know. I think that led to more parts of it. It doesn't know what it wants to be.
This album is definitely not designed for this format, where we deep dive into it and look, like, take that deeper look. I think they wanted to do that at one point, and then something happened, because you can see where the semblance of a story is, but really, I really can't find one. There's like
it feels
3
like
songs that feel like and make it a play, right? The first, the middle, and the last track, where it's got the applause and like the curtain call, and even the titles reference it, but not really any of the vocal patterns or lines or anything.
You know what? Just while you were saying that, I got the thought. It kind of feels like maybe only certain members of the band were down with it being like a story or a concept thing, and other members of the band wanted to take it in a different direction. I mean,
we do know the band has since split.
The band split up shortly after this, so it feels like that's just a predecessor to like there being problems here.
The thing is, this was like a very big album for them, as far as I know. I mean, I even knew Silhouettes of Motion before I knew the rest of the album, and this is months ago. And
there are some tracks on here that are probably great as singles to be enjoyed, and I bet they have great music videos that go with them. I don't know. I agree that you can definitely tell there's infighting going on with the band, which is such an interesting thing to hear on an album. But in like the most boomery saying, I'm probably going to have this whole episode, is like the Beatles didn't sound bad on the rooftop because they were fighting. And they had already decided they were going to break up. They were pretty much the biggest band of all time, are the biggest band of all time, whatever. So, you know, there's a way to do it and create a cohesive product, even as you're going through that.
I think that just comes back to, what are you making the music for? And I think at that point the Beatles had made their money and they had their fame. They knew what they were. So they're like, one last hurrah, let's do it. So they sounded good. This is someone who's trying to make it, trying to get the money, trying to prove a point that they're worth something. That's just what most small musicians are doing. You're an attention whore, as are we. That's just the name of the game.
Right. It sounds, so more like a bunch of individual players pushing for something rather than a team. Mm-hmm. You know, it happens all the time with, here's a good one, with the NBA. You watch NBA teams that have killer rosters, killer players, are all breaking records, and yet they can't win a game because they won't pass the ball to each other and won't agree on what's going on and what's doing there. A band has a similar situation. You have to function as a group to create an art, an output. Otherwise, you'll get this weird soup. I don't know.
All right. Ready to move on to album art?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have a good note for this one.
I gave it like a 7.
Give it a 7.5.
I give it a 4.
I give it a 5.
All right. This thing came straight out of 2006. It's outdated before it came out. What are we doing?
Dude.
Why is the sepia filter on here?
Do you know where it came from in 2006 though? A freaking
Moulin Rouge?
No, a CW TV show. It looks exactly like the poster for a TV show on the CW.
It's this filter that's on everything. This filter I'm talking about.
Is it the 100?
It's the.
I think it's Vampire Diaries.
It's the same thing that happens with.
The original.
This is gonna be a weird pull. This is gonna be a weird pull. But Jesse was watching it the other day and made a comment about it. It's like RuPaul's Drag Race. If you ever seen the first season of that show, it has the early 2000s sepia filter over the entire first season, and they did it on this album art. It was used everywhere. It was overdone before you even looked at creating this art. It was overdone before you picked up an instrument. Good lord. The thing is the living embodiment of cornball. The text is illegible, and the little like livery on the side. Why is it there? This came out in the Big 24. There is no reason to have a bad photo with a worse filter combined with an outdated overlay and a god-awful type. You have messed up on every front you could.
Bro, I don't think I've ever felt so validated on this show.
No, we are a team on this album art.
Yeah, I just don't get it. Like, I don't understand why you'd pick that. Like, this album is not nostalgic. You know, if this album sounded like it was from 2003, yeah, fine. But it doesn't. Actually, I'm not sure this album sounds like it's from anywhere, but
Hell, it almost feels like they were doing the thing where, like, oh, we want to put it in a record store and make it look old to make it appear, you know, more likely for people to try and buy it, seeing they like found something hidden or something like that.
But the records from this era don't look like that. This looks like a
Right?
movie poster.
I think
Fail.
this was supposed to be more of the tie-in to the story, because it swings Moulin Rouge to me. And then we've got all this play and BS, like it's like a musical. It made sense for what they seem to have been going for, and I can't say it doesn't fit. I mean, it's pretty fitting for what I just heard, a kind of jumbled mess.
Yeah, it being what the concept was supposed to be is
Mhm.
kind of how I took it. I thought it made sense.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
didn't bug me any. It
It's
does
just-
look very like 2003.
Yeah.
I was going to say this album art would be cool if it came out before I was born. If I saw a release date of like 99 on there, I'd be like, oh yeah, that's nostalgia. But no.
Here's the thing. I think if we would have got this like 30 years ago, it could have been revolutionary. It could
I
have started
feel like
something.
it would have been big.
Really? You don't think it would have been like some weird niche genre?
Unless there's a genre for too many things going on at once. What's the, like, overwhelmed core? Like,
I think they called this like sasscore.
they called it
was one of the
sasscore.
tags,
Yeah, because and I get it. Like, it's a lot of like backhanded and this and that. It has that like vibe, and I'm not saying I hated it. I'm just saying there's a lot.
Oh yeah, but do you want to hear that done well? Go listen to Kim
You know what?
Dracula. like they got the person who does it right on their album, and suddenly that's my least favorite song. That's impressive to do.
Makes me want to listen to clowncore. That's what it makes me want to do.
Just listen to the Killer Clowns from Outer Space soundtrack. Do that like monthly.
All right, we ready to move on to music overall?
Mm-hmm.
I gave this a 6.75 overall.
Give it a 6.5.
I gave it a 7.
I have a flat 6.
That's a tight group yet again.
We're all on the same page.
Yeah.
We have different reasons, and this was an interesting one because it's a very polarizing album as far as what tracks you like. But I think we're all going to come to the same conclusion. Is just there was no defined creative direction, or it started with one and got lost.
It feels like this album kind of grows in the same way as Shreewood. You know, you have this weird core that's starting to branch out, and then once you get out with all these different pieces, you don't have anything to kind of cover them up. That's why trees have leaves, you know? This album is lacking in the leaves. there's nothing to kind of fill in the little gaps in all of these weird tones we get, these weird sections, the little riffs and inspirations that we get from all different types of genre. And I do think a lot of this album sounds cool, and that's why I gave it a 7. I think like people could be really into this. It's just so disjointed at moments. You have like in the same song, it sounds like it's mixed by 2 different people. It lacks cohesion, and the album art makes it look like something you'd find in a Lost and Found, or like a dollar store bin. Okay.
That sounds meaner than we probably mean. I mean,
No, I just mean like the album art ages it poorly. Like it makes it seem like already out of touch.
Yeah, and there were definitely parts that I didn't hate. It's just kind of like, I don't know, man. It's like if I ate a cake and really liked the frosting, but the rest was super dry. Like the cake overall was still going to get a 6. Like, here we are.
Yeah. I liked some of it. I didn't like other parts of it. We just talked about that for an hour and a half.
I think the thing that just wraps my brain is it feels like they ran out of time. This feels like we got 6 tracks that we knew going into it were going to be story heavy, and they kind of were. Like the first half of this album, there's some cohesion there's a move to it, and then you get to Silhouettes of Motion, and it's a good track, but that was clearly a single track, so you can't really include that in that thinking. Everything after that is very clearly influenced by something else. Like, it just feels like they got into a fight, stopped writing, and then we're like, this needs to be out in 2 months. What do we do? Well, spit them out. And then they just dropped 4 tracks that were solid, fine enough tracks, just not with the project.
More realistically, they probably decided they were going to break up and then phoned in for the last 30% of the album and had to fulfill the contract in order to get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's not that uncommon, but I think that's very, very likely. I don't know. The other thought I had just now is this might be a slow burn. If you like this album, I would think that the more you listen to it, the more you'd catch the detail, the more you'd catch, I guess, the wisps of whatever it was they were trying to do that are left, because there are a lot of them. There's a lot of cool little things that come in there, and I think that I explained that earlier. That's part of my problem with this album, is that it's like almost good. Yeah, I don't know.
It's so close to being something. This is gonna sound way worse than it needs to sound. You're trying to make yourself stand out so much that you're becoming the freak. And I don't mean that in like a bad way. It's just like you're putting this light on me that goes, here, look at me, we're different. Well, sometimes you need to be what everyone likes a little bit more. Pull back a little bit on the screaming. Not even like...
That's exactly why Korn is Freak on a Leash.
Exactly.
You have to pull it back.
Like, you just put a little compression. That's all I'm asking for. And it'll fix a lot of the problems. Just some more stuff needed to go into this that were just touches that you make because everyone needs to make them. You can't put a spotlight on me that goes, hey, look at me, I'm huge, new, and different, and then that sound be so far from what everyone knows and so far from what the base of reality is. It's cool to want to invent and want to do something new, but it's next to impossible to pull it off these days.
The other thing I'll say is, like, if you are trying to go in and create without a plan, you're in for a bad time. I think we know that really well on some of the behind-the-scenes stuff that, you guys will never see. But,
Personal anecdote real quick. I have repainted a guitar 3 times in a row. And it caused horrible cleanup on the back end with all the clear coat and buffing and polishing. It was great.
Well, there's a difference between not liking the outcome and redoing it and just not having a plan when you start. And this gives me the second one.
You know how many
That was the
videos
thing.
have been
I went
bookshelved
into
because of that?
I went into it without much of a plan. Like, I had a general idea what I wanted to do, and then I painted a guitar red when I already have a guitar that's red. And I was like, that's silly. And then I tried to paint it blue, clogged the hell out of my airbrush because I was using the wrong paint, and had to restart again.
I was just thinking about a lot of our videos that, like Logan said, just never made it out of the development stage because of the ridiculousness of what you think going into stuff too. Having unrealistic expectations are the wrong word, but having completely unrealistic just ideas that are going to be impossible. And I think that may have happened somewhere in the middle of this too, is they just realized they could
over their heads.
they could never meet the concept album thing they were going for, because if they had pulled it off, this album probably would have been an 8 or 9, because what they were trying to do was super ballsy and super original, and in fact really could have been cool if it wasn't really fake and cheesy. But you know, I don't know. So I feel like I always say this when I don't like an album, but huge props for doing something that risky,
for trying something. Like, you tried something, maybe didn't hit the ground at the right speed, but it was you putting your effort out, and that's the most important thing. You know, no one succeeds sitting at home not trying. So
yeah, and a 6 for me is not a bad score.
And say 6.5 is like half of last season. So
Yeah. Yep.
You've joined Nitrate.
Speaking of the seasons, we got anything else before I do this?
No.
All right. As we grow to the end of season 4, we're bringing back a classic from season 1. If anybody remembers that, we have now a physical wheel, and for the last 4 albums of this season, we have brought them. So
You know, canonically, I've never seen that before because I didn't even exist during season 1. So
you did. You were in 1.
Oh, okay,
You're in one, yeah.
nice.
All right. So I got it.
throwback.
By the way. Yeah. All right. So Logan, do you wanna spin this and we'll see what we're listening to next
You might
week?
be able to sit it right there on the table and have a better
That
shot of it.
should
It won't be in focus.
Oh,
That's why I'm
damn.
holding it here.
That makes sense.
All right, Carson,
Oh.
you're up.
Food by MF Doom. That's gonna be great. I was listening to that on the way over here.
twas.
Tune in next week. Carson's gonna lead us on Food by MF Doom.
Pumped. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm super excited. One of my favorite albums.
All right.
All right.
Bye-bye.
See you then.
Bye.
Oop.